Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
I'm Susan Brender, and this is the Susan Brender Show. You know, I had a very interesting conversation before with a person by the name of Rick Bava, so I invited him to be a co-host on my show today. I'm very pleased to have you as a co-host, Rick, and how are you today?
Oh, thank you, Susan. It's a real honor to be a co-host on your respected program. Yes, the discussion that we had in our previous show was just so rewarding, and my understanding, we had quite a great listener group, so very pleased to be with you again today.
You know, Rick, you know I'm a baby boomer, and I'd like to discuss how my life has changed at this point. I find myself wanting to get involved in volunteer work and projects that make a difference. Don't you feel that you would like to do that as well?
Yes, I think that is representative of the greater baby boomer generation. As you know, Susan, and our audience knows, I traveled the country for over 2 years interviewing and talking to baby boomers, and one of the subjects that came up very often was making a difference, making a contribution to society. And I find that baby boomers are really reaching out to try to make an impact through the endeavors that you've stated. So I think you're very representative of the generation.
You know, do you think that baby boomers want to leave behind a legacy, so to speak, about themselves, or do they just want to fill up their time?
I don't think they want to fill up their time. I think you're more in line with the discussion about legacy. I think what happens in every person's life, they start to reflect on what their life has been thus far. They look back and say, have I made a difference? And baby boomers, I think, are really asking and posing the question, can I still make a difference? So I think baby boomers as a whole have always had a giving type of nature, always had a idea that they wanted to make a difference in society, all the way back to their days as a college student, and making a cultural impact difference on society. I think today they're turning to the charitable giving as a real direction.
You know, Rick, one of the projects that I'm working on currently is called The Lion's Roar. And this project is being done for a museum in my state, Florida, and it's called the Spady Center or the Spady Museum. And I want to do this project because I'm going to be teaching young people how to do a podcast, and also I'm going to be able to show them how to do a documentary online. And this reflects the type of programs that I work on, because I love to work with young people, and I think you might too.
Well, I think that's very admirable. I really applaud you. I have heard about the Lions Roar Project, and I think it is a wonderful initiative. And I think what you're doing with the Lions Roar Project is three things from my view, Susan, is you're giving back by mentoring, and you're teaching skills for the next generation. You're using your talents, your acumen, to help prepare the next wave of students. You know, the young people today, I think, I've got a very positive view of them, and I think what you're doing is just outstanding. I had heard about your project, and I really respect what you're doing. I would like to know a little bit more. What do you think are one or two or three of the biggest benefits that will come out of what you're going to do with the Lions Roar Project?
That's a good question, Rick. I think that the first first question that you asked is what do I think it's going to help me do or provide me with satisfaction? Well,
Yes.
the answer to that is that when you work with young people and you educate them and you give them a skill, there's nothing better than that. It's so
Right.
it's so inspirational and exciting to work with people who can appreciate what you're giving them. And so that's one of the reasons that I feel that the Spady project is a wonderful project, and I hope that the kids learn a lot. And the second point is that it gives me such great satisfaction, gratification to know that the children that I'm working with appreciate what I do. And last but not least, it is very important in our society to provide creativity for the students.
Of the younger generation?
Yes,
right?
of the younger generation. And I think that when we do that, there is nothing more valuable than that.
Susan, how did you get involved with the project? Because that is such a contribution. I'm curious as to what led you to get involved with this project, because you're called upon by many charitable aspects because you're a well-known personality, a lifestyles expert in Florida. How did you choose this one as one to dedicate your time?
Well, I have to admit that there is a program in New York called Radio Rookies. And when I listened to that Radio Rookie show, which was on NPR, I said, this is such a wonderful program that I really need to offer it to the students in my area. And we also want to, if this is successful, we want to take it around the country. Because
oh, wow.
Yes, and one of the reasons we want to do that is because educating our young children and giving them a chance to interview people like maybe you would give them so much information and so much talent. I mean, it would just prove that there is a generation out there that needs the wisdom of other people who are, or older people, baby boomers, for example, who know so much, and that's why I do it.
Oh, that's really interesting. You might this might resonate with you, but my parents, and I believe your parents as well, were part of the greatest generation. Tom Brokaw wrote about them. People who came through the Depression, saved the world in World War II, and so on and so forth. And I learned so much not only from my parents, who I loved dearly, but I have a lot of respect for my uncle, who ran Loyola University Medical Center in Chicago. But I also learned from professors and people of that generation who taught me the skills that I have. Wouldn't it be a wonderful contribution if the young people of today who are so curious and they want to learn would pick up those skills from someone with your acumen, Susan?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Rick, for saying that. I want you to know it's very interesting that you actually talked about your uncle, because I, too, had an uncle who just provided me with so much information and so much. And let me tell you about him. This was my uncle's. Oh yeah, this was my Uncle Sid. And Sid, if you can believe this, started the Human Rights Commission to the United Nations with Eleanor Roosevelt. Now I know. Oh yeah. And so Sid was an inspiration to me, and I learned so much from him that it gives me the real pleasure to say, wow, I'm just so lucky.
What an inspirational story. How did he get to know Eleanor Roosevelt and get to work on such a esteemed project?
Well, my uncle worked for the American Jewish Committee, which was a very large organization that did a lot of human rights work, and my uncle started something called the Blaustein Institute, which many people know about, specifically people who live in the New York area. And and so my Uncle Sid met so many people all around the world, and one of those people was Eleanor Roosevelt. And his wisdom and her wisdom put together. Oh, you can't believe it. I mean, it was just an amazing thing that they did.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And who in your family, besides your uncle, had an impression on you?
Well, I came, as you know, Susan, from a very close-knit family. We were a family that had high regard for extended family. I think somehow we're missing the fact today in this day and age that extended family has as much of an impact as your direct nuclear family. So, on holidays, we spent with the uncles and the aunts. I had a very dear aunt, Evelyn Gleiberman, who had a major impact on me. She was quite a talented singer. She was very involved years later in the Lyric Opera of Chicago and in Palm Springs as well. She was quite the philanthropist in Chicago and really kind of believed in that life should be led by giving, that a life of service was very, very important. I might tell you, if the audience wouldn't mind, I should be sharing a personal note. I don't think I would be the person that I am today if it weren't for my aunt. My aunt and my mother were very close. They were sisters. And as a result, she really stepped in and helped me quite a bit moving forward with my education and background. So I would say she is most responsible. And she loved your area where you are in Delray Beach and of course she loved Palm Beach. She loved going to the breakers in Palm Beach, and I think it's that area, right? Delray, Palm Beach, Pompano. It's the Lions Roar will really benefit from. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. We're in South Florida, which is all part of the same area, and Palm Beach is just maybe a half an hour from us. But you know what, Rick, let's change the subject back again to the whole notion of volunteering. Do you volunteer,
Yes.
Rick?
I do. I don't have as much time for it right now as I used to. Because I'm so focused on being a chronicle of the baby boomer generation. As you know, knowing a little bit of the inside baseball, one of the ideas of being a thought leader for the baby boomer generation was really built around the idea of making a contribution to society. After my corporate career was over, I wanted to give back, and we saw a void in the way the baby boomer generation was being presented. So I thought maybe through my communication skills I could help other baby boomers through my work. So in some ways that's a bit of a major, charitable volunteer contribution, although it's part volunteer, part way of life now. But that's one aspect. My brother Bob actually was very interested in St. Jude's down in Memphis, Tennessee, and I actually visited St. Jude's after St. Jude Hospital after he passed away, and tried to carry on a little bit of his work there. But I think you're really on to something about giving back and baby boomers making a difference, and you're spot on really in the way they're thinking. Sometimes we think the projects that we're working on, we're the only ones, but it is very what you're doing, baby boomers will identify with.
Yeah. I talked to a woman by the name of Myra Goldberger, and she's amazing. She actually is, we won't give away her age, but she's probably an octogenarian, and she started doing some programs for many, many different people, and her programs were all about people who were running for the presidency, in particular two women, and she also does events all around. And she said to me, Susan, there is nothing more pleasurable and actually so exciting with the work that I'm doing. And here's a woman who is in her 80s, who has who started out as a teacher and did many other things after that. And so I know that people who are older, they're able to do, maybe even start another career. And yeah. And so don't you think that's a very interesting thing to do? Never give up on yourself and sit around and do nothing. Here's a woman who has shown that anything goes when it comes to your inspiration, your dedication, the things that you want to do. You can't give up when you're just because you're old.
You have to be relevant. We spoke on this last night. I gave a major presentation here in San Diego, which is where my home is, for the San Diego County Library System. It was hosted at the Del Mar Library, and we had a rousing turnout to come and hear your co-host of today, Rick Bava, talk about In Search of the Baby Boomer Generation and the baby boomer generation as a whole. And we got onto this wonderful discussion about being relevant, right? Baby boomers continuing to make a difference. And I don't think being relevant, continuing to make a contribution to society, continuing to have a path forward, continuing to look ahead, I don't think that has a number on it. And I think that's what baby boomers like you and me are thinking about.
Yes, and I work sometimes with very interesting people. For example, Richard Skipper is a very interesting man, and also I worked with Stephen Foster and Suzette Ferrari and Calvin Ramsey and Shelley Seidenstein, and maybe some people don't know about them, but let me tell you something. They are working on some projects that would blow your mind. For example,
really?
Oh, indeed. Yeah. Indeed, and let's talk about Shelley Seidenstein for a moment. Shelley, she is she's a documentarian, and and she has worked with Maya Angelou, and in fact, there's a movie that is coming out, a documentary, all about Maya Angelou that Shelley produced. And I must say, it's quite a remarkable piece. So you see,
I can't wait to see that because you're talking about a voice of history with Maya Angelou, and to produce such a documentary on such a person, I think that will probably really speak to the people who will see it. I'll bet you that has a very powerful message to it.
Oh, it does. And Shelley's talked about it with me, and she's told me what an amazing person Maya Angelou was. So can you imagine people who are actually working together with some incredible people, and what satisfaction they must have?
Oh, yeah. That's an interesting point, coming full circle back to how we started this discussion. And by the way, Susan, I must say, I'm really enjoying being a co-host with you. It's such a pleasure. Of course, you're so easy to talk to, so you make it easy on your co-host.
Wow.
I must tell you, satisfaction, charity, philanthropy, giving back, making a contribution to society, making a difference, picking out a project where you use your own skills to make a difference on young people. I just can't think of anything more rewarding. And by the way, I might share with you, this is not just my thought or your thought, it's our peer group's thought. That I have a pretty good handle on where baby boomers are and where they're going, and the history of our generation, and in talking to hundreds of baby boomers, I think you really could be a good example of what a lot of them really want to do. So I really hope that the Lions Roar project is as successful as you know it will be. I think you're really onto something with that project.
Well, I feel very much the same way, that working on a project such as the Lions Roar for the Spady Museum is something that gives me so much gratification, and I want to tell the people, my audience out there, our audience today, that maybe they would like to help in this endeavor that we're doing.
Well,
and go ahead.
I was just going to say I don't want to overly influence the audience and make them think that we had some sort of an agenda for today, but I did want to just comment that my wife and I believed enough in the work and found it significant that we did our part, and I would encourage baby boomers who are listening, who are followers of mine, to please be willing to get behind your project as well.
Mm-hmm. So if they want to get behind our project, then the way to do it is to take a look at Susan Brender in the search bar, and when that comes up, it'll come up as Susan Brender Productions. And on my website, you will see that there is a button called Donate, and when you donate, you will get so much pleasure out of doing something worthwhile. So I want to thank you, Rick, for being my co-host today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Well,
yeah,
me too.
It really was really great. Susan, I'll close by saying, as you know, we're out talking about the book. We're out visiting with media personalities. There's a lot of people interested in our baby boomer generation. But I really think your audience really resonated, our discussion that we had. And I was really looking forward to having an opportunity to be with you again today, and just enjoyed it so much.
That's great. And so, Rick, just tell them one more time, what is the name of your book, and how do they get it?
How generous of that for you to say. My book is called In Search of the Baby Boomer Generation by Rick Bava. In Search of the Baby Boomer Generation by Rick Bava. It's available on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble. And I'd be really honored if our audience were to read it, because I think they'd get a lot out of it.
Well, today my co-host has been Rick Bava, and he has a book that he's written all about baby boomers. And thank you so much, Rick, for giving the audience some information about how to really feel good about being, let's just say, instead of repeating baby boomer, alive and well. And and that's what I think is so important, is that when you're a baby boomer, your life is full.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes, thank you, Susan, and nice to be with your audience again today.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show.